Hi, I'm Karin from Cafe Bebe, and I am dressed for Halloween today because at Britmom's we're discussing Halloween and what we think about Halloween and what does it mean to us as a family, do we celebrate, yada yada. Well, obviously I'm American, and in America no holiday goes by without massive commercialism attached to it. So, of course, I am used to a massively larger attempt at Halloween in the US. So for me to come to the UK 6 years ago and find that Halloween actually wasn't such a big deal and wasn't completely over-commercialized in all the shops was really refreshing, because guess what? As a kid, I lived in the state of Wisconsin. I lived in the state of Wisconsin most of my life. But as a child, obviously, when does Halloween fall? On the 31st of October, correct? Well, winter in Wisconsin often begins in October. And I couldn't actually go back and tell you exactly how many, but very often for Halloween there was snow. So, costumes and dressing up and masks and all of these things were actually sort of pointless when it came to trick-or-treating, because it was usually so cold by the 31st of October, and of course dark by 3:30 in the afternoon, that when you went out trick-or-treating for Halloween, you either had to have your winter coat on over or under your costume, which kind of defeated the purpose of having a costume, or you had to have such a giant costume that your coat could fit under it. Mainly, my tradition in America for Halloween was trick-or-treating. We didn't necessarily have parties at friends' houses, or, sometimes as I got a bit older there were some school parties, but for the most part, Halloween was trick-or-treating. I remember when trick-or-treating became decidedly more sinister after there were some cases of wacko adults putting things like razor blades and horrible things inside candy. So we were advised then that when we were out trick-or-treating, you weren't to sample the candy from the houses until you got home and your parents were given the chance to go over the candy, make sure everything was still in its original wrapper. So things like popcorn balls and apples that, caramel apples or toffee apples that were really a standard and sort of the best of the best when you were trick-or-treating, suddenly became obsolete because it was not necessarily a food that could be wrapped, or it was something that somebody had made by hand, and no one would go to that house anymore or would take that candy anymore because we were afraid, which is really sad. So as I said, when I moved to the UK, I was really pleased, actually, to find that Halloween isn't such a big deal over here. I've never really enjoyed Halloween, and I think it's partly because my mom didn't enjoy finding the costumes for me, so she always downplayed Halloween a little bit. And I had a tragedy happen one Halloween. My grandfather had grown pumpkins for us in his garden, and he had carved our names, my brother and myself, in the pumpkins when they were really, really tiny pumpkins. And as they grew and grew and grew, the names became bigger and more prominent, and weren't they cool? So these were prized pumpkins that we set out on our doorstep, as you do, in the U.S. anyway. And I came home one night from, I think it was religious education class or something, to find there were some pumpkins smashed on the road in front of our house. And upon further inspection, and looking at the doorstop at our house, they were our pumpkins. The pumpkins my grandpa had grown for us had been snatched from our doorstep by some horrible children and smashed in front of our house on the road. So there was the end of that Halloween, and I've never been terribly keen about Halloween ever since. We have yet to actually acknowledge Halloween with Ella. She's 3 years old. We have never dressed her up. We've never gone trick-or-treating, mainly because it's not a very big thing in our village. We have a small village. We live at the end of a cul-de-sac, so there's not necessarily a lot of through traffic that comes through. And up until last year, we still had our dog. And anytime anybody knocked on the door, St. John would go insane barking, and so generally we kept the house pretty dark because we didn't want to torture St. John with constant knocking on the door. So for us as a family, it's really a struggle. Ella will learn more about Halloween this year, I assume, through school. There'll probably be a dressing up day, and I'll be forced to begin the process of sorting out costumes and such. So I'm not terribly excited about it, but if she wants to do it, then we'll do it. And if she wants to go trick-or-treating, we'll go trick-or-treating. What do you do in your family? It's very different, US to UK, that's for sure. How do you celebrate it, or do you celebrate it at all? That's what we're talking about at Brit Mums and on Cafe Bebe. So feel free to let me know your Halloween memories and whether or not you'll be donning a costume this year. Thanks very much. Have a great day.